I started this series of talks defining mindful awareness in terms of three components: concentration power, sensory clarity, and equanimity. Then I talked about how those three components would lead to these four forms of happiness. Extraordinary happiness for yourself as sort of the root, and then they also foster ordinary happiness for yourself, and they lead you to bring both ordinary and extraordinary happiness to others. So these are like sort of the four quadrants of the picture of total happiness. And I would claim that you need all four quadrants to be a totally happy person. We started with a definition of what mindful awareness is, and there were three elements needed for that. Then we talked about, well, why do you want it? What good is it? And we sort of got these four quadrants of total happiness. Then I mentioned the 5 things that you need in order to be successful with mindfulness practice. Learn the concepts, get one good technique. Be willing to apply in life, and regular rhythm of day-to-day practice, periodic retreat practice, day-to-day self-practice. And then those 4 plus time are sort of the factors that lead to mindful elevation of the base level of mindful awareness. There is mindfulness practice. It takes a little time to acquire a few concepts, acquire one good technique. Then you apply them in the concepts and technique in your life, and you do a regular practice. If you can, daily practice. I recommend at least 10 minutes a day. Of course, it can be much longer. And then periodic retreat practice. I recommend at least a 4-hour mini retreat per month. So those 4 things plus time, and not necessarily a lot of time, I'm just saying time itself constitutes sort of the practice. And so the mindfulness practice elevates the base level of mindful awareness, and that leads to something that I've been calling extraordinary happiness for yourself, a happiness independent of conditions, an experience of body and mind that no longer limits you in identity to the body and mind, and external behaviors that improve with time. It's an interesting thing, a paradox, a deep mystery, how the experience of going beyond the body-mind identity, which is an experience of dissolving into the source, which is an impermanent, dynamic, but vacuous doing, and quite impersonal. How contact with the impersonal, how when a human who has feelings and behaviors, feelings being pleasant and unpleasant, behaviors being good and bad, a human who has feelings and behaviors contacts that which has no feeling, no pleasant or unpleasant, no good or bad. That as the result of that human becomes more and more deeply nurtured in terms of their fulfillment and refined in terms of their behaviors. That's the central mystery of the mystical path. How that happens, because it sort of is strange. You wouldn't expect it. Why should contact with that which is not good or bad and isn't human and doesn't have feelings so nurture us at the level of feeling and refine us at the level of skillful and unskillful in our behaviors? It sounds paradoxical, but that's what's happened. That's what happens. And that's what I'm talking about as extraordinary happiness for yourself. It's also interesting that, contrary to what you might think, the more you transcend conditions, the better it is to improve conditions. You might think, well, you transcend conditions so you become indifferent to conditions, and therefore, things fall apart. But actually, as you become extraordinarily happy, a happiness that's beyond this world, so to speak, that's outside of time and space, your experience inside in time and space, your ordinary happiness for yourself, statistically tends to improve. Not inevitably. It isn't true for everyone always, but as a general principle, that is true. And then from this transcendence comes a contact with the womb of consciousness, and from that womb is where self and others arise. So there is this concern for the well-being of others, both that they have ordinary happiness, so that's sort of ordinary service, and also that they have extraordinary happiness, as you have begun to experience, which is teaching and supporting teaching of this path. So that's sort of the big picture as I see it.